Now, as you guys probably already know, I am a sucker for a good point and click game. In fact, I'm fairly sure it was a click and point game that was the first thing to kind of tear me away from just playing Nintendo first party games. So when Children of Silent Town asked to sponsor this video, I was so excited, as I actually checked out the demo earlier last month, and it was a game I was really intrigued by. I was lucky enough to already play the entire game, and one thing I love about it is that although it's on the creepy side, there's no death, no combat, and no real way to mess up whatsoever. So you can take each of the puzzles and the story at your own pace. The worst thing that can happen to you while playing through the game is that you get so stuck you need to look through a walkthrough. Although I didn't have that luxury as I got the game early, so I just had to sit there and try and figure things out by myself, which was interesting. So let's go through everything I love about the game first. The first thing I loved was the art style. It's simple, a little bit creepy, and kind of gives me Coraline vibes, but not in a bad way. The game centers around Lucy, a young girl living in a town surrounded by monsters. In order to stay safe, Lucy is told by her parents to never yell, always come home before dark, and most importantly, to never leave the town or enter the forest. If you don't follow those rules, then you'll likely be next in a long line of townspeople who have vanished, never to be seen again. Or so the kids are told, as Lucy, along with her friends, are convinced they're not being told the whole story when it comes to both the disappearances and the monsters that live in the forest. You see, despite so many people going missing, no one even bothers to go look for them. Instead, some townspeople go as far as to say the people who went missing had it coming. But Lucy decided to not take the adults' word for it, and instead decides it's up to her to get to the bottom of these disappearances by herself. But every time Lucy tries to get closer to the truth, the adults try and constantly get in her way. As I said earlier, Children of Silent Town is a point-and-click adventure that sees you explore, solve puzzles, and uncover the truth by interacting with the townspeople. I feel like out of all the point-and-click games I've played so far, this is definitely one of the more story-driven ones. And I definitely think that's a good thing, as the story is definitely one of the stronger features of the game. And the art style, mixed with the music and the story, put together the perfect, creepy, yet cozy vibes. And although the story is definitely mysterious and given to you slowly over the course of the game, it's interesting enough that it keeps you wanting to uncover more. So I found myself playing this game for hours at a time just to try and uncover a little bit more about what's going on. The story is split into chapters. Mostly all of them center around the small town Lucy lives in itself. But despite the town's size, I seem to constantly find new areas to explore with every chapter. And I was constantly surprised by items they managed to hide around each and every corner. For the most part, the point-and-click mechanics are pretty standard. You can pick up items you find around the place and place them into your inventory. Then you can either equip the items to use them or combine them with other items to make something more useful. And for the most part, the point-and-click puzzles themselves were a lot of fun. And if you're well acquainted with this genre, they were kind of straightforward. If you've ever played a point-and-click game, you know what I mean. Like, for example, if you play a lot of these games, you know that in every room you're placed in the game, you need to search head to toe to find any item you can, as each and every item you find will be needed later. And you also know that if you're stuck, there's a good chance you just need to combine 2 items in your pocket to progress. And I'd say there's only a handful of times where I got properly stuck, where I had to stop playing the game altogether and come back to it later to figure out. The game also makes it slightly easier for you when it comes to using items, as often if you're holding a useful item, you'll see a cog symbol where you can actually use it. This saves a lot of time, as you can equip items quickly and just filter through which ones can actually be used. It is, however, worth noting that the game itself has no hint system. I personally don't think this is a huge deal. Point-and-click games typically have walkthroughs to go along with them, and by the time this game actually launches, there's likely to already be a walkthrough for it. But that's something to bear in mind, is that if you need help, you won't receive it while you're on the Nintendo Switch. And by the way, there is no shame in needing a walkthrough whatsoever, as I don't think I've played a single point-and-click game without at least looking at a walkthrough once. After all, you paid money for the game, you might as well actually be able to complete it. There is one huge way this game differs from every single point-and-click game I've played so far, and that's the singing mechanic, which is one thing I really did enjoy. As you go about your adventure, Lucy will come across different notes. These are either taught to you by people around the town, or by sounds you hear when you're going about your adventure. And once you collect all the notes, you can not only learn a song, but also utilize it. And the cool part about the game is that dependent on how many songs you uncover through your playthrough, it will affect which of the multiple endings you get to the game. So it's definitely worth exploring and paying attention to every object in every room you discover. The other thing I love about this mechanic is that it made me play the game a little bit differently to every other point-and-click game. Usually it's just a case of finding items, combining them, and finding ways in which to use them. But in Children of Silent Town, you also have to take into account what you can do with Lucy's singing. For example, one of the first songs you learn can be used to unlock people's memories. And this can be absolutely vital when trying to get some of the adults to open up about their past. There's another song you learn pretty early on that will reveal the history of an item's past. Either this allows you to gather more information, or this can remind a character of something they long forgot. But uncovering these secrets does not come easy, as every time you need to use them for a vital part of the story, you first need to complete a puzzle. Depending on which song you use, you'll get a different puzzle, but the two most common puzzles you'll come across is the sewing style puzzle and also a path finishing cog turning puzzle. Neither of them have official names, so that's what I've called them. The sewing one was a lot of fun and normally pretty simple to figure out. You need to sew through each of the buttons in the right direction and finish up in the middle. But the tricky part comes as the thread can't cross itself, and some of the buttons you need to pass through more than once. So you need to plan your path wisely. Things initially start off nice and easy with only a few buttons and a pretty easy path. But later on they get harder, not only by increasing the number of buttons, but also introducing portals into the mix too, which was a nice way to spice it up. Now the cog turning puzzle was a bit trickier. At the start, I was not a big fan. I wasn't really engaging my single brain cell whatsoever, and I was just kind of relying on dumb luck to help me through. In theory, it's pretty simple. You need to make a path from the start to each of the houses. However, you'll soon find out that when you turn the tiles, only the first tile will turn. And in order to turn different tiles, you need to interlink them with cogs. To make things even harder, if you remove a cog from a tile, they will jump back to their initial position. After a while, I kind of got the hang of it, and I kind of figured out that the trick is to figure out which cogs you don't need to move, and then interlink all the ones that do. But the thing I kind of like about both of these puzzles is that although there is no in-game hint system, the puzzles themselves, if there's something you don't enjoy much or you get stuck on, are very walkthrough friendly, as there's no luck or chance in them whatsoever. So once someone makes a walkthrough for each of the puzzles, it will be pretty easy to follow and get the solution. So if you're someone who doesn't really enjoy these type of puzzles or finds them really tricky, just wait for a walkthrough to pop up and then go ahead and play the game. Outside of the song puzzles and standard point-and-click puzzles, there was still plenty of fun things to tackle too. And I think the game really came into its element in chapters 4 and 5, when you're let loose on a little bit more than just the town. And the puzzles definitely expand a lot with it. It's really hard not to give away any of the story. As I said, it's a really strong point of the game, but the later 2 chapters are really where things get fun. Now, one thing I am always concerned about when playing point-and-click games with a controller is the controls, as typically these are designed to be used with a mouse. But surprisingly, it does work really well. You use the sticks to control the character, and instead of using a mouse, you can toggle between items to interact with the trigger buttons, which made life so much easier than having a cursor on the screen. Then you use the trigger themselves to access the songs or the bags to use items. Overall, I had a really fun time playing the game, and it's always a lot of fun to play a cozy game with a little bit of a difference. I think there are a few things that would have made the game better, however, like for example, having at least some sort of in-game hint system, as there were a number of times where I felt completely lost with what to do next, and I had to take a long break from the game and a lot of time to figure it out. Usually the solution was pretty simple. I just missed one key item or just missed an opportunity to use a song. But sometimes I also found it wasn't glaringly obvious where I could go or what I should do. So a hint system really would have helped. And sometimes I felt as though the pacing of the game was slowed down a ton by the number of puzzles I needed to do. As sometimes when the story was getting good, you needed to use songs to get through each and every segment of the story, and they slowly became a little bit repetitive, especially the paths puzzle. Overall though, I really enjoyed this game. And what makes it even more impressive is not only is the development team small, this is a development team whose main occupation was not making games. They did all of this in their spare time after their main jobs. And I look forward to playing it through again to see if I can get a different ending. That's everything from me today. And if you want to see me rank every single game I've played on the Nintendo Switch, click this video here. I'll see you next time. Bye.